Hello, and welcome to Azure with AI, where we help companies set up their application, the AI application, in a very secure way, and the AI automation. So I'm here to talk to you about Azure Cognitive Service. And if you remember in my previous videos, we covered what Azure Cognitive Service is about. And we also set up an indexer in Azure Cognitive Service. And we had that running in the portal. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to get that done using codes. Okay. Assuming that we have, and we're going to use Azure Functions to get that done. We already had this indexer working. So if I just run a search, I can run a search on anything. This is what's going to be displayed. Okay. So we had the API already set up. And so what we're going to start doing, we're going to look at Visual Studio Code and pull the code that have been set already together. So thanks to the Microsoft team who put that together. So it's actually an Azure function backend, which is a serverless solution, and we are going to use Azure function. We are going to use Azure function to read the API, and then we are going to use React.js as a client, as a user interface to push the result to. Okay, so let's start with the backend, the API. What do we have here? So we have the function app, which is very important because this is the wrapper of all the functions that I'm going to be covering. The first one is the lookup blueprint, and then we have the search blueprint, and we have the suggest blueprint. Okay, so the two that I'm going to focus on are the lookup blueprint and the search blueprint. Why are they called blueprint? Because that's how Azure Function works. So these are the two functions that I'm going to be covering. All right, so let's start with the lookup blueprint. If we go to the code, so that's going to look at lookup.py, just like you're seeing on line 5. Okay, so let's go to the lookup and see how it works. So first, we have and I'm going to explain the code before I get to the results. Okay, so first, what do we have? We have the endpoint. We have that endpoint from the documentation, which I'm about to show you. So the endpoint have this HTTPS request, and then you have the name of the service, which is Azure Cognitive AI. And if I go back, I should be able to see that here. Okay, so this is the Azure Cog AI search, and that's the name of the service. And then I have my key, and don't worry about this because it's true, we're not supposed to expose any key, absolutely not supposed to do that, especially when it has to be deployed to production. I'm going to change this key and erase it after this video, so you don't have to worry about using it. It's actually bad. It's actually a bad practice to deploy any codes using secrets. Okay, so I'm going to be removing it, but this is just for the sake of this video. Now, what you're seeing here is the name of the index and your good books, and this is what I have already set up here. Okay, and then this is how the blueprint is set up. Pretty easy to do. The code is there. Now, if we go down a little bit, the lookup is designed to look by the ID. And what do I mean by that? So if I go to the indexer, so if I try to run a query, okay, and I take one example. So I have this ID. Let's look for ID. So this is an ID. If I want to look not by the search, but by the ID in the data, I can look that up by this ID, by 20, or by anything else, by any other number, and all the information will be spit out. That's pretty much what the lookup is for. Okay. So how does it work with the API? So if I just run this API, by changing that number, it could be 100, it could be 20, it could be anything else, I should be able to have the result display. So this is what this code is all about. All right, now the search.py And like if you remember, I also talk about the search.py. Let's look for the search.py and let's find out what it's doing exactly. Again, here we have the endpoint set up again, and actually I'm about to show you a documentation that addresses that, how to set that up and how to test it in Postman. Okay, just to make sure that everything works properly. Then you have the same key, and then you have the index name. Now here, the first function that you're seeing is the facet, and really, the facet is the number of, the filters that you want to use as a column to apply to your data. So this is pretty much what it is, and what you're gonna see return is the here's an example. You're gonna have an array, and then you're gonna have a string as for author, you're gonna have array. For language code, you're gonna have string. So this is an example. So you should expect array and string from what you can see here. Then you have the OData syntax. Now, what is OData? OData is a language for pretty much for filtering data. And if I take you to this link, or this one, text query. So if you want to do all type of query, yes, you can use OData to do so. Let me give you an example. So you have this post request that you're making here, and then you have everything set up. And by the way, the post request just work exactly like it's set up here. All you have to do is just follow the instructions. So you have the service name, you have the search.windows.net, you have the indexes, and then you have here you have hotel. In this specific case, this is the name of the index, and then you just have to copy the rest and all the way to the end you have the API version, right? So that's what you need to do. And then here is how the filter looks like. This is an example of filter. This is an example of select statement. And when I'm looking at this code, it looks very much like SQL. Here's another example. We already covered this, but you can look through the documentation and you are going to understand how easy this query work, or this filtering system work. Okay, so you have different ways of doing it. Again, it looks pretty much like SQL, greater or equal to such and such. So that's pretty much how it works. And if I go back to the codes, you should be able to see that at the end you have a specific field, okay, and you have a specific value. So whatever query you're putting in, just like what I was showing you, you have the /any somewhere. I can't remember. Yes, this is an example, but this is the general syntax that will capture all the filters based on the column and the value that will be put together, if that makes sense. Now, once the filter, so this is the create filter expression. Once that is done, let's jump to the new shape. So this is where all the information that will be applied after the filter gets parsed into a document, and this is how it's working. So you have all the results that get returned into this new API shape JSON file and turn into a list, and that's what gets returned. Again, for similar to the lookup.py, this is how the blueprint is set up. And here I had an example query. That's a body query, and we're gonna get to the Postman like I mentioned. So here you have this query where you have the Q, which stands for prints. It could be anything else, and here I'm just selecting the top 5. All this information from the request body gets read, okay, into these parameters, get embedded into these parameters, and these parameters now get used. And I'm going a little fast here. That this parameter gets used here in the search clients. Okay. At the end of the day, what you can get, and this is where React.js will capture all this information from the full response. You're gonna get the count, you're gonna get the facet, and you are going to get the results. I hope all this makes sense. Feel free to post your comments, your question at the bottom of the video, and I will be happy to answer them. All right, so now that I explained the codes, let's go to Postman and I have the Postman set up for you. Let me show you how to set up the string to make this work. So you have the post request. It's going to be a post request because you are giving some information so that you get some information back. Okay, so if there is no information to give in order to receive something else, this is going to be a get. But here we're talking about posts. Okay, now I have to apply some filter. I have to do a search, which means that I have to put in something. I have to give something to the API in order to receive a response. And this is the reason why I have this put together. Okay, so this is going to stay under the raw, and it has to be under this syntax. And because I did that, I receive all this as a response. But that was not it. I have to go to headers and have content type application slash JSON, and then put the API key as a value here. The last thing that I did is to have the API version under parameters and have the version of my API here. With that, I hit send and I should be able to get a status 200, which means that it's successful and I get all the information that I need all the way to the bottom. And this is exactly what was coming out from the Azure Cognitive Search Playground, as you can see here. Well, this makes sense. Now that we're done with the I was going to forget the way that was set up. So you have the https / and then you have the name of the service, which I showed you earlier, followed by search.windows.net and that indexes. Then good books is the name of the index, and then all the rest is just something that you need to copy. Okay, pretty easy to set that up. Now back to the codes. We have I have already explained the search.py, the function app.py, and the lookup.py. The search.py, I'm not going to spend time on it because you actually really don't need it. It's going to be used if you do need it. But let me spend a little bit time showing you how to get this running. Again, in the documentation, you have a bunch of explanation of how to run it, but not really how to run it, but how to deploy it. But if you want to run it, locally, which I always do, what I would suggest that you do first is make sure that you have Azure Function Tools installed. So if I go to Google, if I go to Bing, I search Azure Functions Core Tools. Okay, try to download Azure Functions Core Tools, and once you have that downloaded, then you should be able to use it. So this is where you can download depending on whatever version, and that's what's going to help you debug your Azure function from there. Now, once that is done, you want to make sure that it's is running properly. So you want to go to the command line and type func -v. This shows that I have my Azure function enabled here, and I can go now to the code and run some debug. Now, what I'm going to have to do is go to terminal, new terminal. We're going to run this through the PowerShell. Okay, so what we're going to have to do next is just type func start. Okay, assuming that everything is set up, and then it's going to first pick up on the requirement.txt, which is in the API. So you can see my requirement.txt. I have all those library already put in there, and again, these come with the package code from Microsoft. So you're gonna have that put together for you, and really it's not much work to do at this point because all the code has been set up for you. While this is running, I want to stress something out real quick. So if you remember when I was running the code for the bulk uploads. And we already covered that part, but I just want to remind you something. Remember, we use the environment variables as the service name and the key, and I had those into the load.env. Okay, so it's very important to do so, especially when you want to deploy into production, because you never want your key to be used here. Okay, to be used by anybody. So what's going to happen is that with Azure Functions, this is set up pretty much for you. You don't have to use loads env, but you definitely want to change your local settings. So for instance, I have the search API key put here, and I have the service name put here, and I have the search index put here, so that when I'm ready to deploy, um, I can have, actually this could be also be used locally. But when you deploy this, you're gonna have to put all this information um, to the environment variable in the web, the Azure Web Static app, and then you don't have to worry about having those. You definitely have to delete those keys and make sure that you don't expose anything. Otherwise, I don't think your Azure Static Web app will function. So that's just an FYI. We're gonna get to that when in the next video. We are going to go through the React, and that will be the client code that you are seeing here. Now, still waiting for something to come out here. It's gonna take a little bit longer than I expected, but this is pretty much what I wanted to show you. So I will pause this video and wait for the result to come out, and I will start right away. All right, still waiting for something to come up, but it didn't. But I think I understand what happened. So let me kill this, and if you pay attention, this path is not the correct path, so I need to go under API, because this is where all the blueprint is and the function app is, so I need to be there. Let's change directory. All right, so I have everything that I need here, function app and lookup.py, search.py, search.py. So that's really what I'm looking for. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, function start is the command that you have to learn. So let's do that. And here it is. So you have those three functions, those three links that are provided on your local computer. Now you can check and see what happened there. Let's start with the search. So if I click on the search, and here you go. You have all the result that came out of your search. And if you remember, in the search.py, I was trying to query a string. Let me remember what that was. Let me find out what that was. So it was prints, okay? And so here, let's find out. Okay, so we have captive prints. That's one. We then have what else? The petit prince. That's another one. And you see the results by descending order, right? Going from the highest score, 14.36, all the way down to 13 and 12. So this is pretty much how it works. Now you can do any query here. As you can see, could be anything else, and you're gonna have something different. And this is the reflection. This is a reflection of what's gonna come out of of your live API, right? But you're gonna have to pass it to a React.js, which we are going to cover in my next video. Now, let's go back and launch the lookup. Let's launch the lookup. So we have no doc ID primary file. Sounds like I will have to set something up, but let's see. All right, so I know why this is not working. If you remember, there was a way to set this up, right? So we have to put the question mark, which is pretty much a search that you're doing, right? You're doing a search. That's exactly what the question mark is for. And then you put ID equals 100. And with that, you should be able to get your exact document, as you can see here. All right. So I can change that directly to 20 if I want to. And here you go. I have my ID 20 and all the information that come out of it. So that's pretty much how the Azure Cognitive Service works with Azure Function in the backend. Azure Function is actually a good serverless application, backend application that's pretty helpful, especially if you want to save on cost. Azure Function is really great. You can trigger blob storage when you get data, or you can trigger HTTPS requests when you get data. HTTPS is for this specific example, right? So we have a HTTPS. So very cheap and very cost effective. This is the end of this video, and in the next one I will be covering the front end, how it was set up so you can have your full stack application with Azure Cognitive Service and in the backend and React.js in the front end. I hope you like this video, and again, I'm here for you if you need help setting up any like application using Azure Cognitive Service for any need of your company with enrichment, using AI enrichment skills, and have a React.js on in the front end. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to post your question if you have any, and I will see you next time.